Hi, everybody. This is a technical brain dump of Project Kismet details on the day that work finished on Alpha 3 or Milestone 3. I'm putting all these details together to make it easier for somebody to ramp up to the project or take over or something like that. So, all right, here you have the website. And the most important things about the website to know is, aside from the obvious, like where the download page is and so forth, is that, here, let me log in. You go into this special admin menu if you have admin rights to add screencasts. So you have screencasts here, and you can see that you put in the date, the title, and then the YouTube little signifier thing, and it automatically shows up in here. We also have this project menu, which has a lot of technical stuff underneath it. So you have the business plan, the roadmap, and so forth. Now, from a development standpoint, the most interesting parts are the walkthrough and the tracker. So the schedule, as is explained elsewhere, helps people sign up for playing together. But the walkthrough is definitely a technical thing. It allows you to go through step by step in the program, and you can clear a walkthrough, and when you clear it, it gets rid of all these green things, and then you can go through step by step. So if you press it once, it's good. Press it again, it's bad, and press it again, it's clear. You can also add to the walkthrough by clicking Edit. I think you have to be an admin and be able to do that too. And then you can just click any of these and make changes. You can also change the ranking by just clicking there and putting in different numbers. It doesn't automatically update the order, which is kind of a pain, but whatever. Okay, now other things that are in admin while I'm here. There's the reserved words. Actually, that's weird. It's two different reserved words things. That looks like that's broken. Accounts. Okay, so this is fairly obvious. If you want to make somebody oh, there's a bug. An admin, you go in there and do that. You could always, here, let me just show you the database. I'm opening up my database client for the SQL client. And let's see if I can do this without showing it. So the database name is StoryMill. All of the SB tables it stands for StoryBot, which is the shared code between Tidepool and StoryMill. SM is specific to StoryMill, and the WP underscore are all WordPress tables. So you could also go into the account and change the roles in there if, like there's this bug. Okay. The tracker is pretty complete. It's most of the issues are kind of shorthand for me, but I have everything's spelled out through milestone 10. I got to change these dates. But if you know how to use Jira, then it should be pretty straightforward. Following along and seeing what's going on. These are the 15 bugs currently. someday we might move this to the more cloud-based Jira. Right now it's on our server Europa, which is hosted by iNetU. And there is no wiki. We don't have anything for this project on Confluence. Here are some things that I have here. There's the Google Analytics, which are the stats. And you can see how many people are using it. I believe you have to log in as me, tfel@gmail, in order to see this. So there's lots of stuff there. For if passwords are ever needed, they're all here in one password to get into Gmail and all these other accounts. So let's see what else. TigSource is the primary place that we talk about the project itself. So this is a good place to update. I have a whole bunch of different places that I update for news. Particularly, I have 2 Twitter accounts, my own Twitter account and Play Tidepool. I have 2 Google Plus. You have to log in as me, tfel@gmail, for both of these. There's a Facebook account, which is, I think it's just Play Tidepool. We got LinkedIn. There's a group, I think. Here you have the GUID. And then there's Reddit. There's a Reddit page. And again, this is, I'm the moderator. It's r/Tidepool. And we have a Tumblr, which is just, stuff that's copied from my own project blog. More or less, it's just, putting it in there. We use Imager for it's playtidepool.imager.com, and we have Pinterest/playtidepool.com. You see a little. There's of course the YouTube channel, which is under Imiwexa. So this, the Imiwexa Gmail user, is where all that stuff is, and that's about it. So those are all the places that I update. Of course, there's the blog itself, which is a WordPress page. And this is where I update both the blog posts, which go on the website itself, which are right here under news. So these are all the blog posts, but also the podcast, these morning voice recordings that I do. And they are found, if you go to Project Podcast, and they all show up here. I'm a little bit behind uploading them. Okay, so that's pretty much it from an announcements standpoint, how I keep track of everything that's going on. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about infrastructure. So all the source code is in the standard Imiwexa root, which is home Imiwexa. And so when you check out the source, it all goes into this. So both on the dedicated box Europa and my Mac and the various different virtual machines that I use, they're all using /home/Imiwexa as the root for everything. So the most important files are located in projects. You can see there's a number of different projects here. For this one, it's Storybot, StoryMill, and Tidepool. All of those together are Kismet. The other thing to keep in mind is the command directory has a bunch of scripts in it, and you can search for all of them. They all start with either KM for Kismet, SM for Story Mill, or TP for Tidepool. And there's some commonalities. So for example, if I did a KM build, it's going to do both a TP build and an SM build. So this allows me to work on, SM is the server software, and TP is the client software. So there's a lot of these things. Same thing like KM send, TP send, SM send, and so forth. Dep is for deploying the created web archive, both locally and on the dedicated box. And anyway, these should be fairly straightforward, what all these things do. Inside the projects itself, if I go into, say, Tidepool, it uses a standard Maven structure, and the project setup and dependencies and everything can be found in the POM files. There's a POM file for Storybot and Tidepool and StoryMill. Okay, so technologies that we're using, it's right now on Java 8, update 25. I really want to upgrade for a variety of reasons. Installers are going to be better. The Windows has this problem where you have to put in these redistributables, but there's some things that are preventing me from upgrading. The biggest thing is that when I go to update 40 or later, the transparent walls go away, and I have to figure out how to get rid of that. And there's other problems too. So I'm waiting for Controls FX to update to the latest version, and when that happens, I should be able to do that so long as I fix that one problem. Okay, the version of Glassfish that I'm using is 3.1.2.2, which implements the Java Enterprise Edition 6 stack. And if you go in to Glassfish, and you go into domains, and you can see I have a StoryMill domain. You go into StoryMill, and the most important file in here is under config, and it's domain XML. This is really the only file that contains any configuration specific to StoryMill, and it's identical. If I go to my dedicated box, Europa, the setup is nearly identical. So it's the same thing. I'm uploading right now, so it's a little slow. Same version of Glassfish, and the configuration is all the same. Now note that I'm running, whoa, that's old, Java 1.6 for this server, but I believe I'm using 1.7.0.5.1 locally, so it's using Java 7 for Glassfish, not Java 8. Other things that are useful to know, the most important commands, locally, I can, and on the server, I can start and stop a Glassfish instance with SM start, and that'll start up Glassfish. And you do the same thing on Europa with the same. Now, one thing that you need to do before Glassfish will work is get MySQL going. And MySQL, first you have to log in as as root. And just so you know where everything is, if you go into the home MUX directory, you go into /cd MySQL, and this is where all the databases are. And if I go into StoryMill, there are all the databases for StoryMill. If I want to synchronize between the server, which has the same location, I would do a script called smsync. And this synchronizes both the database files on the server as well as the content files. We'll talk about content in a second. So it's taking a little while because I'm uploading. So when this is done, MySQL will be started, and the content will be identical between the server and my local box. Now this probably didn't work because I didn't have the database running. So I'm going to try this again now. SM start. On the server, if you're logged in as root, you do MySQL start and MySQL stop. On the server, you also need to have Apache running. So you do Apache start and Apache stop. And both of those need to be root. And again, it's SM start and SM stop for StoryMill, and that's both locally too. All right, so this is taking a little while. Let's talk a little bit more about core technologies. StoryMill uses, as I said, Java EE6. It makes use of Java Persistence API, whatever the version is in Java EE6. It also uses Java server faces extensively, as well as prime faces. So these are all things that are important to know to change StoryMill. It does use EJB. It uses JMS. And you can get a lot of these details from the POM file. Tidepool makes extensive use of Java FX as implemented in Java 8 update 25. So that's another thing that you have to really know in order to get up to speed. Storybot is pretty straightforward. It uses JPA, but it's kind of, the Storybot jar is used in both Tidepool and in StoryMill. It's taking forever. So the other thing you need to know is the build sequence. So if you want to do a build, and these are all, by the way, assuming that one of the files that's in the command file is called merc. I'm sorry, it's bash rc. So this is our standard environment. Oh no, it is merc. Okay. So this defines a whole bunch of things. You put it in your home directory and change it to bash rc. I'm sorry, you don't do that. You copy this file into bash rc, and then it'll automatically load merc. So merc has all of these aliases, which basically just call a bunch of script files. So if I wanted to do a build, a full build, both Tidepool and StoryMill, I do km build and 03 and km send 03. So that would be the build number. I'm not sure if I need the 03 in the first one. I just got into the habit of doing it, but you do need it on the second one. So this is going to build all the products and send both the Tidepool installers and the storymill war file to Europa. It's going to send for Mac. It's going to send the Java jar thing, which is this one here, and Macintosh. If you do the exact same thing in Windows, and all these commands work. In Windows, I use Cygwin. So it just, once that's set up, it's the same setup. And you do the exact same thing, kmbuild03 and so forth, and it'll send just the Windows installer. If you're using Unix, like here's Ubuntu, you do the same thing, and Ubuntu sends the TGZ file and the deb file, and then I also use Fedora for the last build. So I use Windows, Fedora, Ubuntu, and that makes Fedora. So that gives all of them together. When you finish a build and upload it, you need to do on the server an smdep, which is for deploy, and that'll automatically take the war file and replace the war file that's already there. Sometimes I do an sm stop and sm start after one of those, just to kind of clear out the works and make it good. All right, so hey, finally works. So I can do an smdep. When you do an smdep on the server, you need a password, which is located in if you go into the 1Password. And just search for Glassfish. Everything is slow today. It's under here. So you just use it's Glassfish SM for storymill, and you can copy that in and do the updates. All right. While developing Tidepool, I use a local server. You can see that I just deployed the new war file, and I can pull up localhost and operate against this completely replicated data, content, and website files. Let's talk about content. If you go back to the MUX home directory, if you go into the content branch and then storymill, this is the content that's used by the website. So let's look at the one on the website itself. Hold on. So this one has the installers. So like if I look at the installers, here they are. Now, what's interesting, besides the normal installers, there's also this current file, which has all of the jar files. And it also has this version text, which tells all the Tidepool clients what version of Tidepool is most current. So what's cool about this is if you do a build, it automatically looks at version text, realizes that updates are needed. So when you start up Tidepool, it'll actually synchronize the new jar files to your local machine and then ask you to restart. So this has an automatic updating functionality built in. The other thing to keep in mind about the content is that a lot of this stuff is what gets copied to your local directory. This is the player data, and we use WebDAV to copy all this stuff. I'm opening up IntelliJ right now to show you a little bit more about my development environment. The Tidepool data is put, I don't think I'm going to have it, it's put in the home directory. When you run Tidepool, it automatically makes a directory that has both a local database cache and this content that gets replicated from the website, as well as some configuration and so forth. So I use IntelliJ, and typically I have two instances of it running, one for the StoryMill project and one for the Tidepool project. Typically, I will be running StoryMill in the browser. So right now I can't do that because I have this. So what I'll do here is I'll stop it, and then I go into okay, so I have the StoryMill project and the Tidepool project, and with making sure that the database is running first, I can run StoryMill. By the way, I'm using IntelliJ 14.1.1. So the project files, they're all in the source. And just to give you a quick overview of things, here's Storybot. This project is shared by both. So most of this is JPA code. So it defines, like this is a parcel. So there's a bunch of beans that I define. They're basically POJOs. And they always have 3 files that go with them. There is the interface, which is common to both StoryMill and Tidepool, and it defines what kind of things you can do with a parcel. And then there's a file, which is a store file, which is kind of the facade that allows you to either operate on the local cache or the EJB connection to the server. And then here's the definition for the local cache, all of these queries. So each of the beans in the system has this basic model. And if you look at the StoryMill side, so now this is the StoryMill code, and under parcel, you'll see that I also have an EJB. This corresponds to the cache file. They're almost identical. Now, there's also some base classes that explain all this kind of stuff. Environment is a good place to look for various things. And I don't think I have any resources here now. On the StoryMill side, you also have all these small bean files. It's not really that data intensive. Most important thing is SMApp, as well as an ENV. This is important here, SMENV. Pretty important things, lots of constants and so forth. The general model I use is the word controller for a managed bean that allows you to do various stuff. So here you can see there's the schedule controller that takes care of the schedule, the contact controller, download controller, and so forth. Should be pretty straightforward in terms of how things work. In the web app itself, the most important thing to find is the resources, which is right here. And in layout, this has the look of the website right in here. These are all JSF files that define everything else. And then the rest just corresponds to the general structure of the site itself. Of course, there's a webinf with a bunch of Java EE6 stuff in here. There's not a lot of unit tests. I mean, there's some. I think they're mostly in the Tidepool side. Maybe they're on the StoryMill side. I forget. I usually just test things like regular expressions and stuff like that. Okay, so that's the StoryMill side, and it's taken a long time to start up because I'm doing all this other processing. Tidepool has Storybot again, and the most important is TP app. That's what starts everything. Resources are also a thing here. particularly things like icons and the library files that aren't part of the POM have to come from here. And the UI, these are all fxml files that define the look of the UI. So other things to keep in mind, env is always important, and this is all the HUD stuff. These are user interface elements, and then there's a whole bunch of user interface elements under UI. I make good use of services. This is kind of a multi-threading way of doing things in Java, and also managers. Managers are kind of like the client version of these managed beans that do a bunch of the core business logic for the app. These define the functions that are used in the system for conditions, and then commands is another big one. Actually, they're all under tasks, I believe. Tasks are implementations of commands. So this is a lot of the functionality of the program is in here. Okay, so that's a quick overview of this source. Let's see if this thing finally loaded. Nope. Okay, it finally started up. Now, one thing to keep in mind that is a little tricky is if you go I'm going to the story mill directory, and I go into target story mill, which is where the compiled stuff is. It's important to make sure that this content link goes to home emuexa content story mill. I have a script to do this, sm clink or sm content link. But it's sometimes you can, if you run into things and you're not downloading files and stuff like that, it's usually because this content link got a little wonky. So now I'm going to switch over to Tidepool and run it. Oh, wait, stop. In the configuration for Tidepool, in the run debug configuration, it allows you to put in arguments, and one of the arguments I often use is server host equals and then your local machine name. And this is what's necessary for this copy of Tidepool to connect to your local machine as opposed to the server machine. So if I run it now, it's going to connect to my local story mill. Without it, it goes to playtidepool.com. Trying to... Everything is doing all these installers, so it's really slow. Okay, here's the login box. So I'm going to log in to my account. And you'll notice that it the first time it runs, oh, come on. The first time it runs, it does a synchronization with the content, both the database and the content. To see what's happening, oh, I got some breakpoints. Hang on. You go to your home directory, and you can see that now it's because I'm doing a local version. It used TP test instead of Tidepool. If you connect to the main server, it'll use a Tidepool directory. If you connect to a local server, it'll do a TP test. So you can see that this is the database cache. Here's the configuration files. The content, as it gets synchronized, gets put here, and then the log files are here. Now, one thing that's important is if you open the Tidepool properties, this is another way to do what I did with the server host configuration. I can also put it into the properties file and say which server to connect to. So you do it here, server host, and you can see that this is defined as Minsky local. Otherwise, if you want to go to the server, it would be playtidepool.com. Okay, so this thing should be starting up. There you have it, Alpha 3. So one thing that I often do to develop is I do /split1, and that puts it up top. And then I go down here and I make a local version. So if I do TP make and TP test 2, this is a really useful thing to do. I do it all the time. So make as opposed to build, make just makes enough to be able to run the program locally. And TP test is a way to run the locally made version, not the IntelliJ made version, but the locally made version, because IntelliJ doesn't do a jar file. So TP test 2 is going to prevent a conflict with this. Oh, come on, this thing. Whoa. With the data directory, so it'll say TP test 2. This allows you to run multiple copies of the client with different users at the same time, which is really great for testing multiplayer. Okay, so I think I've covered everything that I really want to cover. Obviously, if you need to get access to all this stuff, you need to talk to either me or my wife Paula Zirkel or my former business partner John Kern, who has access to all the server stuff. And if for whatever reason I don't update the software for 6 months, if I go join an ashram or something and gain other interests, then the world formally has my permission to take what I've done, this source, and throw it up in a public repository on Bitbucket and open source it using an Apache license. So I ask anybody who does that, at least, lets various different communities know that they can do this, like, the One Laptop Per Child community, the Squeakland community, the academic community, the EdTech community, the ISTE community, and the TIG source community. There's a topic on TIG source. So just let lots of people know that the source code has been open sourced, and have at it and have fun and just build on it and do wonderful things. So it's about 1,400 pages if you printed them out of code, and I've put in probably 16 months of my life on this. So I just wanted to make sure that all the details for how to wire everything together and get to everything were made available. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you in game.